Good afternoon, brothers and sisters. How are you today? Let me see. How are our online students? Everybody okay? The external monitor is here. So when I look down, it means that I'm looking at the online students. So when I look forward, I'm looking at the live student. So you all can hide. First and foremost, I want to invite the online students to turn on your webcam so there is a two-way interaction. Before we begin the class, let's do some housekeeping. Everybody received your supplementary notes? Everybody got it? The online student, you all received it? Should have received it, huh? Yeah. So the other thing is for the online students, early on I saw your messages. That is good. At any point in time, if you cannot hear me, or if the on-screen writing is not clear, please let us know. Okay? Our volunteers will be monitoring it 24/7. No, not 24/7, but only during the class. Okay? The last thing is for those students who are sitting on the floor, make yourself feel comfortable. There are different kind of cushions behind. Okay, so the volunteers have standardized with the brown color cushion. It is fairly new, so it's not seasoned in yet. Yeah, so there's enough suffering in samsara. Yeah, don't need to go through more suffering. Okay, if you all need and wish to sit on chairs and use tables, there are some empty seats around. You all can still use it. All right. For those behind who are sitting at on the chair and with tables, everything okay? Can you all hear me? Can see me? Any lag? No lag. Okay. So first things first, I want to thank the Singapore Buddhist Youth Mission for organizing this program. This is part of a yearly program that I conduct on the Heart Sutra. Yeah. Thanks to Tian Qiao. I'll give him a round of applause for initiating this run in SBYM, and also to Long John, Hui Wen, Xiu Yin, Hong Chin, Marcel and Long, Marcel, and how come so many volunteers are? Yeah, one big family, one do all do. Yeah. So, and that's how we have this program this time round. So, before we start into the sutra itself, a bit of background on this sutra. The version that we are covering is in Chinese, yeah, and it is the one that is commonly recited in the Chinese Mahayana tradition. Yeah, if you look at the translation in the Chinese Mahayana canon, there's up to 6 or more different kinds of translation. Yeah, by different masters at different times, yeah, throughout history. The one that is commonly recited was translated by Venerable Xuan Zhang. Yeah, he is very well known, also known as Tang Xuan Zhang. Yeah, his name is actually Xuan Zhang Da Shi, but sometimes also referred to as San Zhang Da Shi. The word San Zhang, I'm going to share my screen, so hope you all can see the screen. Can an online student see the shared screen? Can you all still see me? Can? Okay, good. Can you all see the online? Can you all still see me? Can, okay. Share screen there and disappear. Then you know this is actually a virtual one. So we also refer to him as San Zhang Fa Shi. So San Zhang. So literally in the Chinese tradition, this is referred to as the Tripitaka. Tripitaka. So Venerable Xuanzang is known as a Tripitaka master, yeah, because he translated various texts from the three baskets of teaching, namely the Sutra Pitaka, the Vinaya Pitaka, and the Abhidhamma Pitaka. So, a show of hands, how many of you are familiar with these terms? How many of you are familiar with these terms? The rest not familiar? The rest don't know what I'm talking about? Can you all hear me? when I conduct classes, because especially now cover the face, half the face gone. So I need you all to move around to let me know your reaction, okay? How many of you understand the terms so far? How many of you don't understand, online students? Like Tripitaka, understand, don't understand? Okay, don't understand. It's okay not to understand, okay? That's why we have a class. If you all understand everything, then I can just skip. Then 10 weeks becomes 2 weeks. Okay? So at any point in time, if you don't understand, please let me know. Okay? So a bit of background. How about our brothers and sisters behind at the desk? You are here for the class, right? Yes, for the class. Not here to do paperwork one or. I see some of you just sit there, no reaction. I'm a bit concerned because sometimes during the class, I explain a lot of things, and then at the end of the class, the student tell me, 师傅, I don't understand. 我听不懂英语. Some of them tell me, I don't understand English or I don't understand Mandarin. After 2 hours of talk, everybody understand English 啊？有没有人听不懂英语的？有没有？都 OK 啊。So Tripitaka literally means the three baskets. Well, starting a bit slow, I'll warm you up a bit. Okay, so once we warm up, it will be quite much faster. Okay, so the three baskets refer to the Sutra, and then the Vinaya, and the Abhidhamma. So three Pitaka. So Pitaka itself refers to baskets. And there are different sources explaining why this term. The most common one has it that the early compilation, when written down, were on palm leaves, and then it was collected, yeah, and then in a way like three collections, three baskets. So Sutra refer to the discourses, and then Vinaya refers more or less to the rules, and then Abhidhamma in the Chinese comment tradition we refer to the commentaries. So the sutra that we are looking at for this this series is called the, what is the name? First top quiz. What is the name of this series of classes that we are conducting here? What is the name? Don't know the name of the course you are attending. Heart Sutra, not Kidney Sutra, okay, not Lung Sutra, Heart Sutra, yeah, okay. So at least after today's class, when when your family members ask you, your friends ask you, hey, what happened to you? The whole Saturday, half the afternoon is gone. Where do you go to? Hey, when you tell people, I learned the Heart Sutra. Which heart? We're going to explain in a while, okay? Not Brain Sutra, not Kidney Sutra, okay? Heart Sutra. So this sutra itself is found where? Where is it found? It's found within the Sutra Pitaka, inside the Sutra Pitaka. So if people ask you, oh, you learned the Heart Sutra. So where is it from? Yeah, from National Library. Not like National Library. It's found inside the collection called the Sutra Pitaka. Sutra Pitaka. In the Chinese Mahayana tradition, within the Sutra Pitaka, there are further subsections. And each of the section is known as Pu. Pu. Yeah. So like literally like sections. So we have Ahan Pu, the Angamas, which is the equivalent of the Pali Canon. Then we have Pura Pu, the section on all the sutras related to wisdom. Yeah? And then we have one section on Yu Qie Bu, section on all the different sutras related to the Yogacara teachings. Yeah? Then we have Zha Qi Bu, we have Hua Yan Bu, we have different sections. Okay, so the one that we are covering is under what we call Pura Bu. So under wisdom section. Wisdom section. So, and within wisdom section, there are different sutras, such as besides the Heart Sutra, we have sutras like the Diamond Sutra. Have you heard of the Diamond Sutra? Yeah? You all like a diamond? Say yes. No lah, Buddhists don't like diamond. Yeah? Buddhists, who cares about diamond? Yeah? Ladies, you all like diamond? Say no. Say no to diamond. You all like diamond or not? Yeah, who cares about diamond? We want wisdom. I don't care about diamond. But there's a sutra called the Diamond Sutra. Diamond Sutra. The word diamond is a modern term. So in the sutra itself, the Buddha actually did refer to a precious stone, to describe wisdom. How is it that it's used to describe wisdom? It is used in such a way where it says for lack of a better term, I'm going to just use diamond, okay? Yeah. Also known as, I think, in the Tibetan tradition, they use the word Vajra. Is it Vajra? But Chinese we translate as Jinggang or Jinggang. Yeah. So the Buddha uses this as a metaphor, saying that just as there are a lot of precious stones in the world, and stones are mostly hard, but some are harder than others. Yeah. So although they are all precious stones, some stones can break other stones, while other stones cannot be broken by other stones. Some stones cannot be broken. So among them, there's one particular type which is loosely translated as diamond. Yeah? And in modern times, we also know that diamond is very hard. Among naturally found minerals, it's very hard. So if you use diamond, you can cut many other stones, but other stones cannot cut diamond. So far, so good. What has that got to do with wisdom? So the Buddha used that to describe how the teaching on wisdom is like diamond. because it's the truth. It can vanquish, it can cut away our ignorance. And compared to other teachings cannot defeat this teaching of wisdom because it's the teaching of truth. And so the Buddha used the term diamond to describe the teaching on wisdom. That it is strong and stable. It is able to withstand challenges. And most importantly, it can cut away our defilements and remove suffering. So in that particular sutra called the Diamond Sutra, it's also found inside this wisdom section. Then we have the larger translation known as the Maha Prajna Paramita Sutra. Chinese we translate as 大般若经, the greater perfection of wisdom sutra. So Diamond Sutra is 32, 33 chapters. The Maha Prajna Paramita Sutra is 600 chapters, much larger. Then there is also other translations which are even longer. So the one we are covering is on the Heart Sutra. So then with that, we go into the title itself. We usually refer to it in English as Heart Sutra, but the full term is not just heart. Okay, so let's take a look. I want to bring your focus to the text over here. So this is in Chinese. Don't worry, I see that there is Albert who is in Amor. Welcome. Any other of you who look Penang but actually Amor? Kantang. Any Kantang? Oh yeah, there's Albert also, Amor also. The two of them are in Spain. Alison is also in Spain. So today is very interesting. We have international class. So don't worry, okay? I will write English as well. So this text itself is actually split into a few sections here. So the first phrase, for if you use modern pronunciation, it will be fan ro. But in the Chinese Mahayana tradition, we usually pronounce it as for. And in Sanskrit, the original Sanskrit is prajna, and in Pali is panya. So this is Sanskrit, this is Pali. So the relationship between Sanskrit and Pali is interesting. They are cousin languages. They are cousin languages, in the sense that both of them dates back to the time of the Buddha and before. Most of the scholars and different masters who are fluent in the different languages in ancient India, they will agree that Pali itself, Pali today is commonly found in the southern tradition, such as in Sri Lanka, in Myanmar, Thailand, Cambodia, and also in the offshoots found in Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, and so on, what we call Theravada tradition. So Pali is commonly used as a language for transmission of the teachings. But the interesting thing is, while it was used to transmit, Pali is actually a spoken language. So you cannot actually write Pali. So that's why when you so-called read the Pali terms, like when we do Pali chanting, right? Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Hey, Sifu, Namo N-A-M-O. How can you say cannot write? That's actually the Romanized Pali. So we use Roman letters. ABC is Roman letters to write out the pronunciation for Pali. because Pali is actually a spoken dialect back in India. Yeah. But Pali itself, strictly speaking, isn't exactly what the Buddha would have spoken as well. It is said that a close cousin, another close cousin of Pali is Prakrit, which is commonly found in the Magadhan area back in Buddha's time. So the Buddha probably spoke Prakrit plus a variety of languages, much like all of us in Singapore now. Yeah, we speak a number of languages, right? So some masters and scholars these days think about it and say, hey, why do we assume the Buddha only spoke one languages? Right? For the longest time, some schools say, oh, the Buddha spoke Pali and only Pali. But today we speak a lot of languages, right? Correct or not? Even for Edward and Albert, you all speak Spanish, right? Oh, no reaction. Hang. Is it hang? Oh. So you all speak Spanish language and also English, French, any French? Vous parlez la langue de français? 3 languages, English, Spanish, and Chinese in Mandarin. Huh? I'm sure we all speak a number of languages, right? So the Buddha is probably spoke a couple of languages. Then how about Sanskrit? Sanskrit was around in the Buddha's time, but it was oftentimes the more, what do you call it, like the more formal language that was used by the Brahmins. So Sanskrit is spoken and written. Yeah. So in fact, in Sri Lanka, many of the monks who learn Pali, they would know Sanskrit also, because many of the scriptures were written down in Sanskrit as well. Yeah? But in Sri Lanka, they also write down in Sinhalese script. Then when it transmitted to Myanmar, they write down in their Myanmar script, in Thailand, in the Thai script, and so on. Okay? In Singapore, most of us would be reading the Romanized script. So how about this sutra? We are referring to the Chinese script. Yeah? So in the Chinese Mahayana tradition, we usually say that it was mostly translated from where? From Sanskrit. Let me write down in full, okay? So that you all know what this is about. Sanskrit. Yeah? Mainly in Sanskrit, but if you look through all the sutras, a good number of them is actually from Pali as well. Yeah. I was very fortunate to have met a couple of senior monks who were involved in some of the scholarly translation work from Taiwan. And in one of the informal meetup, then we had some discussion. And they mentioned that, no, actually, some of the texts were translated from Pali. And during that meeting, we had some students from the Buddhist College of Singapore, and some of them were actually from Cambodia. Yeah, and then they cross-referenced and affirmed that yes, during don't know which dynasty, some of the Cambodian monks were invited to China to help with the translation work, because those were in Pali. Yeah, in some script. Don't know what script it is, but it's actually Pali origin. So they need help with that. So from this, we know that the Chinese Mahayana text had my screen hang just now. So from these 2 sources, okay. This what you call that? This sutra itself, I would say mainly from the Sanskrit source. But where I can, I will write down both languages so that you all can have more exposure. So the first term, Prajna Panya, in English is basically wisdom. And then in Chinese, we translate as 智慧. I'll go a bit into these terms in a short while. Now let me just run through the whole title first. Then the next one is Guo Luo Mi Guo. Is the font big enough? Is the handwriting clear enough for those behind? Not clear. Clear? Clear? Okay. Follow me to sing. So this is actually from the term paramita or parami. And literally, it means cross over to the other shore. So sometimes, many times in the Buddhist tradition, then we use another single phrase and we say it is to reach perfection. Yeah? The literal meaning is to cross to the other shore. Yeah? But it has the meaning of reaching perfection. Okay? So in Chinese, we translate as just one word, tu. The next term is quite straightforward. And this is basically heart. And the last one is basically Sutra. And basically is referring to the discourses. So let's come back up to the first term, prajna or pura. So we know that it means wisdom, but why was it translated as pura? So this has to do with how Buddhism didn't start in China. Yeah. So the Buddha didn't speak Mandarin. Yeah. So, but when they started doing translation, some of the sutras, most of the sutras are translated, but in the course of translation, there's a certain rule to observe, which is names of people, of places, do not get translated. They get transliterated. Transliterated. What it means is, instead of converting to another language in terms of the meaning, we convert in terms of the sound. So an example I used to give is, I like to use the United States president's name. And the one that I like to use is George Bush. Yeah. So Bush, the Bush president, in Chinese, what is it called? What is George Bush's name in Chinese? Bu Shi, yeah, Bu Shi, right? Bush, Bu Shi. You know, this sounds alike. But if you were to translate, if you were to translate Bush, then it becomes Cao Cong. Yeah, Cao Cong, literally bush. So can you imagine if there's a conference and the MC announced, 我们大家欢迎草丛总统. Yeah, I think the whole audience will just burst into laughter. So we usually translate terms, but names we don't translate. We leave it alone. We do transliteration. Much like Donald Trump, he used 川普, 川普 or 特朗普. So it sounds like it. Yeah. So this is still done today in different languages. The other rule of thumb is, if the word itself has multiple meaning, but the destination language does not have one word that captures all the meaning, yeah, then the translation is futile. Yeah, you choose First word, it captures 1, 2, 3 meaning, but it miss out 4, 5, 6. You choose the next word, it captures 2, 4, 6, but 1, 3, 5 miss out. Yeah. So if you cannot find one word that fully captures the meaning, then we say don't translate. Just transliterate, and then put it into the commentary, into the footnote. Yeah. So once you see a transliterated term, then you know that it falls into one of these categories. So in this case, 般若波罗蜜多, yeah, the first two terms are under transliteration. But eventually, we also find that we also use the term 智慧. We also use the word term 智慧. So the word wisdom is an English word we all know, right? Yeah. So do you all have wisdom? Do you have wisdom or not? Have wisdom or not? Say yes. Of course you have. You choose to attend this class. Have some wisdom to make the choice to attend the class. But do you have the complete wisdom? Maybe yes, maybe no. Yeah. So there are different kinds of wisdom. There is, first and foremost, the conventional wisdom, or what we call the worldly wisdom. Okay, conventional or worldly wisdom. And then there is, as opposed to this, there is the supramundane or other worldly wisdom. In Chinese, is 世间 and 出世间. And what it basically means is the worldly wisdom helps you function in this world. Yeah? But it does not help you to transcend this world in a simplistic way. Take, for example, a form of worldly wisdom can be seen as the worldly knowledge. Yeah? So, for example, maybe you know how to drive a car, and then you know how to make good use of the car to benefit people. Yeah? Certain circumstances happen, you know how to deal with it. Yeah? In a way that benefits yourself and others in the long term. Then we say, you have wisdom. If you only know how to, if you only know how things work, if you only know how things work and how to get things done, but you don't know how to use that knowledge to benefit people, then we say you have knowledge, you have intelligence, but not necessarily wisdom. So wisdom has this element of being of benefit to others. Okay, but if your benefit is only in a worldly sense, then it's still not considered the supramundane wisdom. I'm not considered that. All right. So far so good. So what about supramundane wisdom? Yeah, other worldly wisdom. To find out more about this, then we need to look at another term. Okay, another term. So we have 智慧 here. Okay, wisdom. As opposed to ignorance. And in the Chinese tradition, we use a term called 无明, or ignorance. I'll put it down here. So there's this like a parable, describing what is Wu Ming, what is ignorance? These two are opposites. Okay, wisdom and ignorance. So what is ignorance? In the parable, the Buddha described a person going on a journey, yeah, and it's dark, and so as he travels along this path, he cannot see very clearly, yeah, and so because he cannot see very clearly, so he had to proceed cautiously. But in the distance, then he noticed that there's a snake. Yeah, he noticed that there's a snake. Yeah. If you all are walking in a park and then there's a snake, what do you do? What do you all do when you encounter a snake? Or some of you knock your eyebrow, looks so serious. Don't worry, this is just a story. It's a parable, okay? Do you all have a snake at home? I hope there's no snake at home. Edward and Albert, if you all come to Singapore and you hear people trying to eat snake, in Singapore we have this phrase called eating snake. This is a side story, okay? Side story, nothing to do with wisdom, okay? Eat snake. Okay, remember this term. Ask me later what eat snake means, okay? Ask me later, don't ask now, okay? And back to the story. If you encounter a snake, how do you all feel? You all feel excited? You all feel happy to find a snake? Unless you're in a zoo. Yeah. Otherwise, if you encounter a snake in the park, how many of you will be terrified? Or I see Mickey says immediately take your handphone and take pictures. So this man, he encountered a snake and he got a bit terrified. Yeah. But then he has this torch, yeah, and he moves closer very cautiously. And as he moves closer and closer and closer, at some point, when there's enough light from the torch, then he sees clearer and clearer, and he realized that actually there's no snake. Actually, what is there is a coil of rope. What happened to the snake? What happened to the snake? The snake, in a way, disappeared. But what really disappeared is not the snake, it's the perception of snake that disappeared. Because there was no snake to begin with. It's not that there was a real snake and the torch made the snake disappear. Yeah? There was never a snake. But there was a perceived snake. The perception of the snake indeed exists, but the perception is a wrong perception. And we can say that that perception is ignorance. Yeah? There's ignorance of the presence of a coil of rope, leading to a delusion that there is a snake. And once there's enough light, light represents wisdom. Okay? Light represents wisdom. So in Chinese, Ming literally means there is brilliance. Yeah? So Wu Ming, no brilliance or no light. Yeah? Wisdom, in some places, literally means light. Yeah? And so once there is enough light, then you see clearly. Similarly, once there's wisdom, then you see that whatever you were afraid of, whatever you were suffering over, actually you see a different side of it. Yeah. The snake, perception of the snake disappeared. Yeah. You can also say that the snake seemed to disappear. But in reality, no snake to begin with. And once there's no snake, what happened to the fear? Fear also disappeared. Yeah. Why? Because you realize that there's no more snake to begin with. Yeah. So, in the Buddhist text, this is used to describe the relation between wisdom and ignorance. So, often in Heart Sutra, then I use a bit of Hokkien. You all know Hokkien? Anybody do not know Hokkien? Anybody do not know Hokkien? Raise your hand. Hokkien, how tell me? Okay. Albert and Albert, you all don't know, huh? Never mind. I teach you. Okay. So ignorance, 话不对. Delusion, 话傻了. So literally, when there's ignorance, it means no light. You cannot see. You don't see the way things are. But the problem with us is we don't see, we still think we see. And then we still have our own perception. When we perceive wrongly, we still think it's correct. And when we hold on to this wrong perception, thinking is correct, that is delusion. So the relationship between ignorance and delusion are quite simple, in a way. So the absence of this is what we call wisdom. The absence of ignorance, delusion, is what we call wisdom. So then, what is it about this wisdom that makes it supramundane? So there are 3 levels of this supramundane wisdom that corresponds to the 3 kinds of wisdom that is developed, namely, 闻思修, what we call 闻思修三慧. So the first level is hearing. So it refers to all the different ways of coming into contact with the teaching, including hearing, and nowadays reading text, and including when you watch YouTube or now through Zoom. Okay, basically learning about it through the senses. If you do that, then you can accomplish the wisdom that is actualized, that is accomplished through hearing. What we call 闻所成慧. 闻所成慧. In layman's terms, that kind of wisdom is basically what we call knowledge. Knowledge of what? Knowledge of the wisdom. It's actually just knowledge of the wisdom. Yeah, you read the sutra, you hear a teaching, you're hearing what people describe of the wisdom, of the truth. So you are just having knowledge of it. You have it yourself? Not quite. But we also call that wisdom because it points towards the wisdom, points towards the truth. Then the next step, after you hear this talk, you hear that talk, you read this book, you read that book, have a lot of wisdom, knowledge of wisdom. Then what do you do? What do? You go online and argue with people. you go online and discuss with people. Yeah, go on forum. Oh, what you say is wrong. According to this sutra. Sometimes we do that, maybe. But that can be interesting. Or maybe with that knowledge, you can write a thesis. Write a thesis, submit, and then it comes a dissertation, and you get awarded a master's, Bachelor of Arts, or Masters of Arts. Or you can get a PhD. Then what happens? When you die, you bring along the PhD, and then can you bring along your PhD? Cannot not? Cannot not. So, but in Buddhism, in a Buddhist tradition, we don't do that. Instead, with the knowledge that you have acquired, you go and reflect on it. The next stage. So there are 2 terms that is commonly used: reflect or to contemplate. to reflect and to contemplate. So when you reflect and contemplate on something, you are basically trying to think about that subject matter and trying to figure it out. Yeah. No longer just basing it on what people have said, but try to figure out how or why what the person said makes sense or not. And as you do that, it may cause you to have question marks or doubts. And guess what? In Buddhism, it's okay. In fact, it's quite important that you have questions. Yeah, I'm not saying that you must have questions. That if you don't have questions, something is wrong with you. But the important thing is, it's okay to have questions. Yeah. But if you were to contemplate and reflect, you have questions and you discuss with fellow peers, yeah, or ask questions in class like this, and then there's an answer given. Then based on the answer, you must go and contemplate further until you see how it makes sense, why it makes sense. Then you have what we call an understanding. So that's a deeper level of wisdom. Yeah? You have an understanding of why it's like this. And instead of, oh no, Buddhism is a somewhat complicated religion. Huh? Oh wait, before we continue, are you all doing recording? You all doing recording now? Because there are some students who told me that due to unforeseen circumstances, they are not able to make it for some of the lesson. Yeah. So we have recording. Okay, good. So after you hear, you have knowledge. After you reflect, you have understanding. Then what do? We start to practice. So you start to practice. Or another term is cultivate. And the cultivation again is threefold. Yeah, precepts, concentration, and wisdom. Yeah, 戒定慧. And as you cultivate, you purify. Let me write it down here. Here. Wait. So I'm going to just loosely put down precepts, concentration, and wisdom. So the cultivation part involves precepts, which is basically a set of rules, yeah, to help us to hone our body and speech, mainly our bodily actions and verbal actions. Okay, precepts. Yeah. So by doing this, we gradually purify our bodily and verbal actions. And when we do concentration practice, we purify the mind. Purify the mind in the sense that when you are in meditation, the active defilements such as greed, hatred, and delusion is not so prevalent. In particular, greed and hatred. Delusion is not covered under concentration. Concentration only deal with greed and hatred. Yeah. And of course, prior to even dealing with greed and hatred, concentration, to develop concentration, or what we call samadhi, you need to deal with the drowsiness of the mind, you need to deal with discursive thoughts and so on. And that's why if you look at the 5 hindrances, then we have starting with sensual desire, you have the anger and ill will, and then you have drowsiness, then you have the restlessness and worry, the first 4, and the last one is doubt. So when we practice concentration, it mainly work on the first 2, which is greed and hatred. So purify the mind in terms of greed and hatred. Then how about wisdom cultivation? Wisdom cultivation ultimately sit on top of that, and we practice what we call vipassana. And this is ultimately purifying the view. Purifying the view. And the view, purification of view, basically remove ignorance. And when we say purify the view, what do we mean by that? It basically means you practice and train the mind such that it is able to see clearly. Why? Because when we start off practicing the 3 stage, this is called the San Xue. The 3 trainings, or 3-fold training. So precepts, body and speech purify. Then concentration, purify your mind in terms of your greed and hatred. And then when you practice and cultivate wisdom, what it's basically doing is making use of the first 2, where your body, speech, and part of the mind is purified already. Then you can do what? You can verify. Verify what? Verify what you have learned. You have learned before as knowledge, and what you have understood in terms of your contemplation and reflection. Here to verify, in most of the teaching, we always see this phrase, to see things as they are, right? And that's basically verifying what you have heard, right? We hear from the teachings, the Buddha say that all conditioned phenomena is impermanent, right? Sabbe sankhara anicca. And I sometimes have to pause because I see the screen cross. Am I hanged already? Online students? No, okay. Anytime I'm hanged, you wave wildly, okay? Yeah, wave like a crazy person. Then I know. Okay. Let me see whether I can make this bigger. And it's easier for me to see all of you. Oh, this is the biggest. Okay. Oh, there's so many other people. I keep thinking there's only like, 10 of you. There's actually more of you, Sam, Cherry, Evelyn, never turn on your video. Dora, Projector, who is Projector? Our Projector is this one. Then we have Hui Wen, we have Yiling, Ho Kin, Yvonne, Casey, Joe, iPhone 8. Who is iPhone 8? It's okay. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, so when we say verify, it's basically all the knowledge we have. Have you ever thought about how we learn Dharma, learn Four Noble Truths, Eightfold Path, learn so much things? How come still not enlightened? How come? Because we only know. And half the time we know half. And then forget the other half. Right? Correct or not? Say yes. Louder. Oh yeah, by the way, just now when we are doing chanting, I only hear myself chanting. All of you on power saving mode. hear them just now? I know like halfway through the initial part, the mic was off, right? When we do chanting, you all wear masks, right? Can chant louder, don't only 师父，then you be more energetic, okay? So when we say, what happened on my mouse? Oh, okay. Just now I said, we know all this teaching, but why do we not get enlightened yet? Because we only know. We never verify. When the Buddha say, this is suffering, that is suffering, then we know about it, but we never, on a daily basis, verify and see for ourselves. We don't, when we say never internalize, this is what it means. Internalize means you really see that this is the case. No other way. No other way. When you see to this extent, then there's a transformation. There's a transformation. Where you know it inside yourself. Yeah. And so this verification leads to okay. So then this leads to you have the verification. And this leads to liberation. And then it's no longer just knowledge of the teaching, but you see for yourself the teaching is the way it was said. And that is why in Buddhism, we are quite okay with people having doubts. Because as long as you have not fully verified, of course you will have doubts. Right? So it's okay. The question is, what do you do with that doubt? Do you then actively try to verify it, try to understand it, try to figure things out? Or do you just leave it as a reason for you not to do anything? And if you can do all this, leading up to liberation, then Tin, Sotapanna, Sakadagami, Anagami, Arahant, first stage, second stage, third stage, fourth stage. Then future Buddha will mention. And there, this disciple, you know why this disciple? Now immediately after the one hearing, immediately attained Arahanthood. A long time ago. How many kappa ago? There was this class called the Sutra class. Maybe. But here I want to highlight something else. Just now I mentioned, even though we have knowledge, sometimes we have partial knowledge, right? Sometimes we have insufficient knowledge, incorrect knowledge even. Yeah. So there's one part which is very important, that after we do hearing, there's another step to be done. Something else needs to be done. What is it? We need to retain. Only when we hear plus retain, then you have knowledge. So you know, sometimes in Buddhism, in the Buddhist circle, there are some people who have contempt for those whom they think have a lot of book knowledge, right? They say, this one only know how to talk, never practice also. Ask him to meditate, don't want to meditate. Sometimes in Buddhism we say that, right? I tell you, if you meet someone with book knowledge, you know what you must do? Take a straw, poke into the head, suck out all the knowledge you can suck. You should have respect for someone who actually remember what he heard, you know. Yeah. Because it's actually not easy as well. Yeah. If you manage to do it perfectly, you can become a chief disciple, you know. Yeah, Venerable Ananda was chief disciple, chief in memory. So why should we be respectful of Venerable Ananda but disdainful of those who only know knowledge? Those who only know about the teachings but fall short of the practice. Yeah? Of course, we're not saying that we should stop there. Yeah? But if you encounter someone who has good knowledge of the teachings, this is a good Dharma friend. Yeah? Then, but you may say, but Shifu, his behavior or her behavior is not so good. Who asked you to learn about her behavior? Just learn the knowledge, right? Yeah. I encountered some students who tell me, hey Shifu, this venerable or this person like this, like that. So I asked them, I said, yeah, of course, if you can find someone like Buddha, perfect in everything, good. But if you only want to learn from someone who is perfect in everything, then what happened? You wait long. You wait long. You wait until you have enough merits to meet such a person. Very hard to wait. Maybe have to wait for next Buddha. So in the meantime, go for the next second best. From person A, if you can only learn one thing, learn that one thing. Then how about the remaining 9 things? Learn from next person. Then at most you find 10% you've got it already. Right? If you try to find one person who is good at everything, very difficult. Very difficult. So for ourselves, remember, when we hear, we must retain. So I'm very pleased today to see a lot of you taking notes. The online one, I don't know whether they are taking notes because sometimes hang. So I see them like that. Then don't know. But remember, don't just take down notes and then bring back home, put in the shelf. Next week, take it out. Go back, you must reflect, okay? So, these few stages. And these few stages correspond to your notes. Inside your notes, you will see the 3 kinds of wisdom. Yeah? In Chinese, it's called 文字般若. So the written text or the spoken words, 文字般若. The second level, yeah, then we have the 观照般若. 观照般若. So the reflective wisdom. And then the third level is the 实相般若, the ultimate reality. The ultimate reality. 3 levels of wisdom. So these 3 levels of wisdom, in a way we can say they have different functions. The first level allows you to have a good assessment. What do we mean by that? It means that you can assess whether something is right or something is wrong. You can have the wisdom. The wisdom to know, or is this act wholesome or unwholesome? You have the wisdom. So it's good for you to assess your own actions, especially the actions in the past. It's also good for you to assess your actions for the future. Okay? But this also means that you must have some faith, initial faith, because you just heard about it. Yeah. So you need to have some faith in order to say you agree. But this agreement is very superficial. And that's why its ability to correct our behavior is limited. Still limited. Why? Because although we learn a lot of teachings, like this, like that, like this, like that, but then our own habits, habitual tendency may not agree. Yeah, correct. When our knowledge of the path and our own habits collide, when they disagree, who wins? Who win? We win. Buddha lose one. Buddha cannot defeat us. Yeah? Our habits is so strong. I'm number one. Correct? Yeah? So, but at least if you have the knowledge and you have some faith, after you win, then you say, sorry, Buddha. So that's why we have to do so much repentance. We do stupid things like when. Yeah. And here again, I want to highlight. Sometimes we see people who are like this, right? Then we think, yeah, that person, every time like this, say sorry, confess, repent, but still do the same thing. Actually, I would still say better than not. Better than not. Please don't go and tell people who do this and tell them, you might as well don't confess. Don't repent. At least, don't say that. At least the person is confessing and repenting. Yeah. Most of us will do this again and again for a long time. I don't know how long. Until one day, when we attain Arahanthood, then we stop confessing. But before that, at least if we have the knowledge, those who confess and repent, it means that they have knowledge. Isn't it? If they don't even have knowledge, or even if they're hurt but they disagree, what is that to confess? I'm not wrong, right? So even if someone keeps repeating a mistake, we should at least look at it that, okay, at least this person recognizes. And that's why when I encounter some students, that even after that, they don't recognize it. I'm like, why? So that's why if you only have knowledge, you find that, hey, Sifu, I know like this wrong, like that wrong, like this, must do this. How come when it happened, I still follow up? Because it's only knowledge. So knowledge is good for what? Post-mortem discussion. You know what is post-mortem? It means after you finish fighting people, then you go back home. Then you do a review. Then you review, I'm wrong in this way, I'm wrong in that way. But do we want to stop there? No, of course not. We want to progress. So the next level, wisdom from understanding, further cement our faith. But this kind of faith is a bit different from the first type. First type is simply because you heard it, then you accept. Second level is you understand why it's like that. So it's still faith, but faith starting to have understanding. Yeah? So this works further into changing us. For example, I'll give you an example. Don't give an example, then you don't know what I'm talking about. For example, the first precept. What is the first precept? First precept? I don't know. Huh? No killing, yes. To abstain from killing. Anatipata, Viramani, Sikapadam, Samadhi. Yeah? How many of you do killing? Any killers online? Have you killed anything before? Say yes. Anybody killed anything before? Of course. Not human beings are Sifu. Any of you killed human beings before? Don't raise your hand. Please don't raise your hand. You can see me after class, okay? But maybe you don't kill human beings. Maybe you kill cockroaches. Maybe we don't kill cockroaches, we kill ants. Maybe we don't kill ants, we kill mosquito. Or maybe we kill lizard, and so on. Different things. We all have our favorite. Favorite in a bad way. So that's in the past. So after learning the teachings, we learn about, killing is not good. Yeah? But if you just learn in terms of the precepts, it's just one line. Hu sasan, that's it. Yeah? To abstain from killing, that's it. Right? So that's just knowledge. And if you learn the Samaditi Sutta on right view, under the 10 unwholesome, 10 wholesome, the 10 unwholesome, the first line lists out. First unwholesome act, killing. Killing is unwholesome. Yeah, but if you look at the sutra itself, it doesn't give you further explanation. It's just listing it out. So you just have knowledge that, oh, it is wrong. Why it's wrong? Maybe also don't know. Yeah? But this is just knowledge of the Buddha's wisdom. The Buddha saw that killing is unwholesome. So we just, okay, so since Buddha said cannot, okay, Lord, we feel like killing, so maybe a bit of resistance. But as you attend Dharma classes, then the Dharma teacher explained, why is killing not so good? Then he said, in another sutra, the Buddha further elaborates. In another commentary, the Vinaya master explains, in various teachings, the Buddha speaks of compassion towards sentient beings. How we ourselves fear harm, fear death, likewise other sentient beings. Who are we to impose harm and death on others when we ourselves cherish our life? Then, hey, that seems like a good explanation, you know. Oh, then you go back and reflect. Hey, now you have more reasons not to kill. So the understanding changes us further. But if you go further in the practice, then things transform further. And using again, as an example, the precept of killing, then we say, I've covered the first level, which is simply the precept. Cannot kill, that's it. Then the second level is when you are doing meditation. When you are doing meditation, just how I mentioned, you purify your mind in terms of greed and hatred. And when greed and hatred is removed, then the cause for you to have the intent to kill is subdued. Not removed, subdued. So as a result, we have something called 定共戒. 定共戒 means observance of precepts that is coupled with concentration, in tandem with concentration. In other words, when you are in concentration, like in samadhi, then it has the function to suppress, to put on hold those afflictions of the mind, the defilements in the mind that leads to the urge to kill, and so on. And so, as a result, you are also observing the precept. But it is due to your concentration. The first stage is simply because, the precept says so, and then you take it upon yourself to stop yourself. But you may still have the thought to kill. So when you observe precepts, and sometimes you find, I observe precepts, but sometimes I still have the urge to do stupid things. Don't be disheartened. Don't give up as a result saying, I'm not pure enough, I cannot observe. If you're so pure, don't have to observe. So, first level, second level. Third level is when you have the wisdom already, and you have attained enlightenment. When you have attained enlightenment, just now we mentioned, you purify your view and remove ignorance and delusion. And because ignorance and delusions are removed, greed and hatred has no basis to even arise. Greed and hatred is because we don't see things clearly. That's why we think it's so important, so good, so whatever. Then greed arises, hatred arises. And so up to that stage, if you attain enlightenment, various degrees, up to the final stage, then even the cause for the urge to kill is not even present. And as a result, we call it Dao Gong Jie. That means precepts, observance of precepts in tandem with wisdom. So then at that point, it's not that, actually the Arahant want to kill, no. But I saw he's very quick, stop himself. No. The Buddha described that Arahants, there are 9 things they cannot do, out of which they cannot kill intentionally, they cannot steal intentionally, and so on. So various things. and they are all what is very natural for us. But for Arahants, they remove the cause altogether. And so with this, we may start to have a better appreciation. Oh, so this is what wisdom is about. But ultimately, when we say remove ignorance, it is ignorance of what we usually say, the way things are. And what is the way things are? That which is impermanent, we see it as permanent. That which is suffering, we see it as not suffering, of pleasure. That which is no self, we think is the self. That which is impure, we see it as pure. Yeah. We have wrong perception. Removing ignorance means we remove this wrong perception. We see clearly that it's anicca, dukkha, anatta, sunyata. And with that, it removes the craving and clinging onto this world. And with the removal of the craving and clinging in this world, it severs the chain that leads to the samsaric existence. And that is why it is known and considered as supramundane. That is the distinction between the supramundane wisdom and worldly wisdom. That it can cut off the defilements, cut off ignorance, greed, hatred, and delusion. It can cut it off. So this is the first phrase. Wisdom. So we mentioned about different levels of wisdom. The level that we are talking about in this sutra is all the way to the point where you can actually enable you to reach perfection, to cross over to the other shore. And here again, another story. So this story is actually quite long, but we will zoom into the last part of it. And I'm sure many of you are familiar with this story of crossing over to the other shore. So in the parable that the Buddha shared, there's a person who is escaping from the debtors, people who are pursuing him for causing him trouble. So he run until he reached the bank of a river. Yeah? And then he looked upon the other shore of the river and he find that the other side is safe. The other side don't have my debtors. The other side is peaceful, is serene, is tranquil, free of agitation. Now, what if I were to build a raft and cross over to the other shore? And with that, chop off some wood and then tie them together and then cross over. And in the sutra called the simile of the raft, the Buddha then asked the monks, when he crossed over with the raft, what should he do with the raft? Should he leave it by the river bank and get on with his life to do whatever he needs to do? Or should he carry the raft on his head? And of course, the monk said he should just leave it at the shore and get on with whatever he needs to do. And the Buddha said, indeed. And this is a parable for our samsaric existence. This shore represents samsaric existence. The other shore represents Nibbana. The raft represents the Dharma that allows us to transcend the samsaric existence to enter into Paranibbana, to attain Paranibbana. And in that sutra, the Buddha pointed out that the Dharma itself, if you think about it, in Buddhism, attachment, craving, clinging is at the core, isn't it, of all our problems, our samsaric existence. But in this sutra, the Buddha highlighted even the Dharma is not something that you should be clinging on to. That when you attain enlightenment, it is not something that you hold on to as well. The Dharma serves as an end to liberate ourselves, to be free of suffering, not for us to become attached Because if you are attached to even Dharma, it will lead to suffering. It's very interesting. Buddhism, the principle and teachings in Buddhism is applied onto itself. Yeah? It is not merely applied to everybody, but not on itself. So in the Diamond Sutra, this analogy, this parable is actually highlighted. And the famous verse, 法上应舍何况非法, that if even Dharma itself is not to be attached to, then what more non-Dharma? What more than non-Dharma? So this middle phrase, 般若, so 般罗蜜多 itself is paramita to cross over to the other shore. And in the context, so there are two contexts. One is to simply cross over to the other shore. The other one is to help others cross to the other shore. So in Chinese, we translate as 渡, to ferry over. So then in the Buddhist tradition, we say there are those who build a raft. Well, if we extend the analogy enough, then we say maybe some people build the raft enough for themselves, go over. Then there are those who maybe in a way build a bigger raft, can ferry other people over. But I think more correctly, it is that everybody have to build their own raft. Yeah, but some people only know how to build it, don't know how to teach others how to build it. It's just like, how many of you can know how to cook? How many of you know how to cook? Huh? Nobody. Nowadays, 师傅, what we learn? Just Deliveroo, grab food. We just order with our handphone. We don't need to cook, we just need to know how to press the handphone. So we may know how to cook, but if we ask you to teach people how to cook, maybe it's not so easy. Maybe some of us know how to drive. How many of you know how to drive? Yes, you know how to drive. Not difficult, right? But if we ask you to teach people how to drive, maybe some of us have confidence. I teach you. But maybe we have to think twice. If you have tried to teach someone something before, you know that it's different from simply learning how to do it yourself. So in the Mahayana tradition, we say this is the distinction between the Shravaka disciple versus those who are on the Bodhisattva path towards Buddhahood. Towards Buddhahood. So here crossing over can mean you learn enough, practice enough to liberate yourself of suffering. So you cross over to the other shore. Another level is after being able to cross over, you further learn how to teach others to cross over. So there's these few levels. And in terms of these perfections, in the Avatamsaka Sutra, it says that everything in this world can be considered a perfection. In other words, those who want to strive towards Buddhahood will learn everything that is possible. What for? So that whoever they meet, whoever the Buddha meet, they are able to connect with them. They are able to guide them. Very interesting. And then, of course, it also highlights, in brief, we say that there are 6 perfections. So you will find in your supplementary notes, 布施、持戒、忍辱、精进、禅定、般若. 6 perfections. Starting with the practice, the perfection of giving. And then the perfection of morality or precepts, sila. And then followed by the perfection of patience, kanti parami. And then the perfection of diligence or effort. And then the 5th is perfection of the samadhi, chanting polomi. So last, perfection of wisdom. But although it is last, it is actually first. In the greater text on the perfection of wisdom, there's a chapter called Zun Dao Ping. The chapter on the honor chapter, or the honor guide chapter. So in that chapter, my teacher in one of the talk highlighted, in this chapter, it highlights that although the perfection of wisdom is number 6, in fact, it is number 1. It is the revered, respected guide of the first 5. For if you look at the first 5, the perfection of giving. Giving is something that everybody do. Most people do anyway, isn't it? Yeah. You don't need to be a Buddhist to do giving, right? Unenlightened Buddhists also do giving. Enlightened Buddhists also do giving. In fact, on YouTube, you can see a lot of animals giving things, right? Small kids can also give. So what's the distinction between giving done by everybody else versus giving done by those who cultivate giving up to perfection? We can say, oh, some people only give to friends. Those who are not friends, they don't give. Some people only give to people they like, not people they don't like. Some people give limitedly. Others give boundlessly. We can say that that's that difference. But ultimately, does the person give with wisdom or no wisdom? And here I want to highlight a distinction. When we say give with wisdom, we often say, oh, hey, you must use your wisdom. You must see whether the person is the person con artist one. Every day, same timing, come to this food court, don't get con, you must use your wisdom. Yeah, we can say that that's giving with wisdom. But in Buddhism, when we say giving with wisdom, it means you have the wisdom of no self. You have the wisdom of emptiness. In other words, you are not attached to that there's a me giving. You're not attached to the recipient who is receiving. And you're not attached to the act of giving as well. That is giving with wisdom. Usually we learn anicca, dukkha, anatta, right? Impermanent, suffering, no self, right? We learn in isolation. So after that, sometimes we wonder, then no self, then what? So what? So actually in the teachings it says, it's not actually in isolation. It is that when you are doing your other practices, you apply this wisdom of no self. So to further give the illustration, when we do giving, what do we mean by not to be attached to the I when giving? So we usually say, oh, I give anonymously, right? Compared to someone who said, hey, must write my name, no, you spell wrongly. My name, spell full. This is inside my IC. And after that, during the event itself, you go and ask, hey, how come never announce my name? Yeah, I see on the wall, I cannot find my name. Where is my name? Then we say, oh, the person. Practice giving someone. Wow, so attached to the name. Then there's another person. Wow, you see that person give anonymously. Actually, sometimes I think even the person who gives anonymously is attached to the self. You know why? Because if you truly see no self, why must you hide your identity? Right? If you truly see that the self there's no self, no identity, no permanent self, what are you trying to hide? Why must you hide? Maybe I'm not well informed, okay? But have you seen any sutra? Sutra, I don't say modern masters, okay? I say sutra. I say Pali Canon. Have you seen in any Pali Canon where the Buddha say, oh, anatta pindika, when you do giving,
don't let people know. Huh? Have you heard of the Buddha ever saying that? Never, right? Instead, you see, in the sutra, there's always the Thus have I heard, once the Buddha was at Anatta Pindika's park, Jeta's grove in Savatthi, right? And the term Anatta Pindika park appears in so many sutras, right? What does it tell us? It's known to everybody. Anatta Pindika, he don't hide the fact that he donated it. But he's not attached to that fame also. So high level. What it also means is another level of understanding of no self in this context is not to be so focused on it must be me doing the giving. Meaning, for example, let's say like Shifu drink water. Then you think, Shifu give teachings. Yeah, then or maybe not this Shifu, other Shifu, okay. Then you think, we must prepare water. Then after that, by the time you arrive, you see, someone already prepared the water. Next week, I'll come earlier. Then I can prepare the water. Then when you come at 1 o'clock, people's already prepared. Then after that, you come at 12:30. You come earlier so that it's you who prepare the water. Do you see the difference? Do you see the point? Then you are focusing on you and not on whether Sifu get the water or not. This is focusing on me and not whether people benefit. Then another level is you're attached to this particular person receiving it. Yeah. So let's say for example, I don't say who, but let's say someone offered this laptop to me. Let's say, of course it's offered, but then another time you see, how come Sifu not using this laptop anymore? Then you see another monk using exactly the same laptop. Then the person who offered maybe have this time. What happened to the laptop? Then because Sifu said in class, so cannot ask. And how? Secretly go and ask. Don't ask directly, ask indirectly. Go and ask Sifu, Sifu, so how is the laptop? Then she go, the laptop, okay. How can you say, okay, I never see you use? Then you see the other monk using or the other nun using. Yeah? Then how? Then go and ask the other. Venerable, this is such a nice laptop. But where do you buy it from? No, this one from Venerable Chukwan. Then how? Bang. I offer this. I offer to you for you to use. How come now it's not you who is using? And do you see how when we are attached in this way, then even giving can cause suffering. Giving can cause suffering. And how about, just now I said, the fact that you even ask people, right? How is that thing? So you are still attached to you being the one giving, and even though we give away, we're still asking about it, right? So, of course, just an example, because this is directly, this never do that so far. But oftentimes when people offer things to me, right, I always tell them, you must be prepared that I might give it away. So are you okay with me giving it away? If not, then you better think twice. That's how that works. But most of them, it's yours already, up to you. But of course, people say so people, you say so again, but after that they don't offer again. Maybe, I don't know. So when we say giving, there is the element of wisdom. And only when you truly do it without attachment to the giver,
the recipient and the act or the gift itself, then it is giving up to perfection. And this is possible only when you have perfected the wisdom. But even before you perfect the wisdom, you can try to apply. And in this way, although wisdom is the sixth perfection, number 6, it is actually number 1. The guide for all the other perfections. We revisit the perfections as we go along. Today, just give you an example. The next term is Hat, Sing, Adaya. So, as far as heart is concerned, there are 3 kinds of heart. The first is physical heart. Boom, 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 that one. Without which, then you, but with this heart, sometimes it fails, then you, okay. First type. Second type is our mind. Our mind. Okay? So body and mind. So that's the second kind of heart. Third type, it means essence. The third type of heart is essence. It means the center. Okay? In this sutra, we are using the third meaning. So essence. And that's why in some of the translation you see the essence. The title is translated as the essence of the perfection of wisdom. So this sutra, there are different understanding of it. So there are some who say that, well, this sutra was translated from the text from India, right? So there are those who say that this was the way it was then transmitted. But there are also those who say this particular sutra is basically like a summary of the other sutras related to wisdom. So either way, it is talking about wisdom. But the last term sutra is actually very interesting. Translated as Jing. In Chinese, we call it Xiu Duo Luo. Xiu Duo Luo then sounds like sutra, right? And the meaning of this word sutra literally actually means to thread. So imagine if you have a needle, then you have a string, and you have a few pieces of paper or leaves for that matter. And if you have some leaves or some cloth, you try to bind them together, it comes apart. You bind them together, it comes apart. Now, if you are to stack them together and you thread, use something to thread them together, then they are bounded together and doesn't come loose. So, sutra then refers to the words, the teachings given by those who are enlightened that can help us, the teachings of truth that can help us have an understanding of the truth through which, if we were to contemplate and practice accordingly, will transform us to the point where it binds our body, speech, and mind with that of an enlightened one. In other words, we transform from unenlightened to enlightened. So in the Chinese Mahayana tradition, we use a Chinese word "jing" to translate that. And out of respect for the teaching by the enlightened ones, in the Chinese Mahayana tradition, we usually use the word "jing" only for the teachings given by the Buddhas, the Arahants, the Bodhisattvas, the enlightened Bodhisattvas. Even the very revered Bodhisattvas, we don't call it Jing, we call it Lun, commentary. Like for example, Venerable Nagarjuna Bodhisattva, right? Throughout the Mahayana tradition, he's considered very highly accomplished. But his work is considered commentary.
So the only exception in the Chinese Mahayana tradition is 六祖坛经. But from what I know, the sixth patriarch in the Zen tradition, he didn't declare himself that he is expounding a sutra. Yeah, it is the disciple, from what I know. This is the only exception. So then collectively, the title itself states for us the path, the direction, the intent of this sutra. That this is a collection of teaching that expounds on the essence of the perfection of wisdom, through which you can go from this shore to the other shore, from samsaric existence to nirvanic bliss, from seeing things wrongly, full of fear, full of agitation, full of uncertainty, to seeing things as they are. And so with that, we finish the title. So I always like to highlight where the Zoom participants are all hanged. So I cannot see their reaction. Is our oh, there's a question, but I cannot see the reaction. Yeah, my screen over here, they are all hanged. Is your side hanged? Is your side with the Zoom, is it hanged? No hang, no hang. Now it refreshed. Yeah. Okay, now you all are back. Let me say this again. I want to see the reaction. Today we are going a bit fast. We finished the whole title in one lesson. Do you all find that I'm going a bit too fast? Usually when I say this, students roll their eyes like, how is this fast? Yeah, because in the Chinese Mahayana tradition, there's this well-known master. When he was giving teachings on the Lotus Sutra, 妙法莲华经, 5 characters. He spent 3 months covering the first character. And I believe it was a daily class, daily lesson. So we always say, oh, I'm going a bit too fast. Please pardon me. And then students are like, whole lesson just cover the title. What are you talking about? So I heard that there's a question. Who has a question? Who? Peishan has a question. So you want to turn on your mic, and then maybe you all have to link up. Hang on. Is it connected? Mic test 1, 2, 3.
Hello,
Yes.
can you hear?
Yes, I can hear. Can you all hear? Wow, high tech. Right. Okay, Peishan, you are online now.
Okay, hi. I want to ask more about the delusion versus ignorance. So like you were mentioning, like for delusion is like holding on to the wrong view. So is delusion like being aware that it is a wrong view but you still continue holding on to it? Or is it like you continue holding to a wrong view that you are unaware of?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. So the fact that you're deluded, now there's a, wait, let me try. Let me. Can you hear me now? Can. Okay, so her question is whether the person is aware, right? So by definition, if the person is deluded, the person is not aware that he is deluded. So the person doesn't know that he's having a wrong view. At least at the initial stage, he doesn't know. Yeah, that's the answer.
Then what if like people know that it is wrong but they still continue doing it? Then that is like what is that called?
So that's a good question, because as I said, many times after we learn the teachings, we know that it's wrong already, right? But we may still continue, isn't it? Yeah. So that is called the unenlightened being. What's happening here? It's basically as our habitual tendencies. Our habitual tendencies. Simply put, we learn the teaching and it says like this is wholesome, like this is unwholesome. Like this is good, like that is not good. Yeah, correct? And then after we learn and we do something stupid, we know that it's stupid, but we still go and do. Have you ever thought about why we still go and do? It's because we don't think it's stupid. Consciously, intellectually, we know it's not good. But in a way, we can say emotionally, yeah, deep down inside, we still feel it is quite nice. And that's why, just now I mentioned about repentance, right? In Buddhism, when we do repentance, it's actually quite a long drawn, painful process. It's about really understanding, first and foremost, what we are so attached to, what we find so lovable about the wrong act. And not simply saying, oh, we learned this wrong, then we just, oh. We can do that for one day. We can do that for 2 days, 3 days, maybe even 3 years. But until you have a thorough review of why you find that the stupid thing is so lovable, yeah. Until you see clearly that relation, otherwise we will still revert. There's a tendency that we can persist for a while, then we still fall back. Yeah. There was a prince who went to see the Buddha, and he asked the Buddha, he said, for a long time since he has attained the Dharma eye. In other words, he attained Sotapanna. Yeah. So then he said, but occasionally he still succumbed to sensual desire. He still succumbed to that. So you ask like, why? So the Buddha explained that because you have not tasted the what you call that, the jhanic bliss. Yeah, you have not tasted the joy and rapture from jhana, and that's why you are still stuck with the sensual pleasure. So in some part of parallel way, until we tasted a higher state, yeah, we only know the pleasure we know based on greed, hatred, and delusion. But don't beat yourself over it, patient. Don't beat yourself over it.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, okay, yeah, thank you. I just wanted to ask, like, I was quite curious. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Other questions? Any questions from the floor? How about the online students? Everybody okay? If everybody is okay, we still have 2 more minutes. You think we can? Oh yes. Marcel? We have a question from one of our students here.
Shifu, about building the raft, can we build the raft for ourselves first, reach the other shore, and then teach people how to build the raft?
So Marcel is speaking in code.
code word. Yeah. So when he said, can we build a raft ourselves, then get to the other shore, then after that teach people how to build a raft? Can. But that means you must go to the other shore, then come back to teach. Otherwise, it means that you must shout over from the other shore. Then maybe people cannot hear clearly. And then some people stupid one. you tell them the instructions from afar, right? Then they build. Then they build the wrong raft. You tell them, no, wrong. The other side, your left. No, your left, not my left. What it means is it okay to attain Arahanthood first? Then after that, have the aspiration to attain Buddhahood? That's his question, right? Yes. If we go by the teachings, yes, can. Why not? But it will take a longer time than if you do direct entry. If you do direct entry, then much faster. But if you ask me, if any of you can attain Arahanthood next Wednesday, 3:35 p.m., please do. Don't hesitate. Some Chinese Mahayana Buddhists will tell people, no, why do you do this? Why do you shortchange yourself? Buddhahood. Yeah. Why you so small? Small vehicle. I always tell people, I think the Buddha won't sabo people. If it's really so bad, the Buddha won't teach people to attain the Arahanthood also, right? So don't worry. Okay? Any of you? Next Wednesday, 3:35, ready to attain Buddhahood? Anyone? Anytime you can attain Arahanthood, please go and attain. No problem. In the Lotus Sutra, it says, all the vehicles ultimately lead to Buddhahood. Yeah. But I will go further to say that for now, we don't even have to worry about that. Yeah. So sometimes I see online or I see people having a lot of fierce discussion, which framework is more correct. Whether the framework that's only the path, first fruit, second fruit, third fruit, fourth fruit, Arahanthood. This is the only thing, or the Mahayana framework where yes, there is the Shravaka path leading to Arahanthood. There's also the Pachikayana leading to Pachika Buddhahood. There's also the Bodhisattva Yana leading to Buddhahood. And ultimately, all this all lead to Buddhahood. Which one is more correct? I say that's like kindergarten school kids arguing whether going for IP is better, or going to poly is better, or JC is better, or go overseas is better. Should I go for bachelor's degree, master's degree? ABC 都别要了 figure out your phonetics first. Yeah. So don't worry about it. Other questions? Any other questions? Yes. Who? Xiaofang, like? Xiaofang, small square. Yes.
Shifu, is verification the same as investigation in the 7 factors of enlightenment?
Okay.
Is verification the same as investigation?
A bit different. So in the 7 factors, in the in the 7 factors of enlightenment, the investigation is investigation of states. So for that, it is actually determining whether the mental state is wholesome or unwholesome. It's not directly about discernment yet. There's a buzzing sound, yes. Oh, okay. So verification is at a much later part, or at a much later part. Any questions? Maybe I'll ask you to do an exercise. Okay? In the Heart Sutra series, like in many classes, I always like to start off the series with a simple exercise. Maybe not so simple. So get a pen, paper, or your electronic writing material. Okay, ready? So write down 3 things. 3 things that upset you, agitate you, cause you to make the sound. Or you can think in terms of what is something about you that you would like to change and improve. So please don't write down model answer like, oh, I want to remove greed, hatred, delusion. Okay, please don't write that down, okay? You must write down specific example of what ticks you. Yeah? And it as mundane as it gets. The more mundane it is, the better. Okay, so please don't go online to research what agitates our mind. Oh, then you cite from the Abhidhamma, you cite from the Abhidhamma Kosa. Don't do that. Cite from your life. Write down 3 things. I give you 3 minutes to write down 3 things. When you're finished, I'll explain a bit on this exercise. If you have finished, take your handphone, take a picture, send it to this number. Let me write down the number. I think it's this number. Let me double check. Hang on. 85448447. Yes, correct. So you can send this to Telegram. Let me share the screen so that they can. So after you have done the exercise, take a picture, send it to this number. For those who are writing into your handphone, you can just copy the text and send it to this number. So this number is a new number that the society is using for all the events. I'm the primary person who will read the messages. Yeah, but sometimes if you have queries, you can send to this number. The event ICs will look at it also. Okay, so like if you need to ask me Dhamma questions, you can also send to this number. But if you have personal questions to ask, to seek counseling, and you would prefer to have more privacy, just drop a message here to ask for a private session, so that you don't feel uncomfortable. The whole volunteer group all see my personal matter. No, let me zoom in for you. Okay, big. Okay, done. Have you all sent it? Have you sent it? I'm checking now. Li Hui sent it. So you all cannot escape. Okay, Chong Chia or Chia Chong. Who is Chong Chia? Who is Chong Chia? Oh yeah, Chong Chia.
Chongqia. Korean, no, not Korean. Chia is Singaporean. The rest, now suddenly everybody haven't finished. How about the online participants? Albert, have you finished? You look like you are still writing. Okay. Okay, Ong Chin has sent it in. Irene, my sister, has sent it in. Okay. So while you are still writing or still sending in, let me explain this exercise. Okay. The reason why I don't want you all to write down model answer is because when we go for Dharma classes, Dharma talks, retreats, we oftentimes learn the model path and the model situation, right? And what I found over the years is, as a result, we sometimes have a disconnect. Disconnect between what we learn from the teachings versus what we experience in our life. So while earlier on, we look at the title and we say, this is a teaching on the essence of the perfection of wisdom that can help us to cross over to the other shore. Let me ask you, which shore? The Johor shore? Singapore River shore? Where is the shore? Sometimes when we learn the Dharma, it gets very abstract, right? Then, number one, when it's very abstract, you don't know where to start. Number two, but you don't know where you're headed. Then number three, you don't know what to do also. So instead, I often like to bring it down to earth. Meaning, you start off where you are, which is why the exercise is about what you are directly facing. And to begin with, the things that agitate you. And so then, as we proceed in the next 9 weeks, revisit the 3 things you write down. And feel free to adjust them as you learn more and you find that, oh, maybe this is not precise enough. Maybe this is too large. You need to zoom in to one particular area to do what? To try to work on it. Because otherwise then it's just theory, very nice theory, or a lot of nice stories, but nothing to do with me. So how much is relevant? Then it depends on how relevant your question is. The 3 things you have written down. And to me, if at the end of the 10 lessons, if the 10 lessons help us have a better understanding of the 3 things, maybe even just one thing. If it helps us to even understand one thing out of the 3 a bit better, I think we have not wasted the 10 weeks. And I think our confidence in the Buddha Dharma would have increased and become more assured. And even if we have not been able to lessen it or even eradicate it, we have started. And I would strongly suggest that we can apply this model in other classes that we attend, other talks that we attend, or even when you read a book. Ask yourself, when you read a book, is it just to read something new? Sometimes in Buddhism, we want to learn something new, right? But do we remember to learn, to apply whatever we have learned on our daily life? And so with that, we wrap up for the first lesson. I hope to walk this 10 weeks together with all of you, and then we explore and see where that takes us, and perhaps to the other shore. Put our palms together. 愿消三障诸烦恼，愿得智慧真明了，普愿罪障悉消除，世世常行菩萨道。
阿弥陀佛，起立。